Shedeur Sanders. Yes, the prodigy, the golden-armed, swagger-laced, camera-ready quarterback every franchise has had eyes on, is reportedly heading to the Cincinnati Bengals, and folks, Cleveland is having a full-blown identity crisis. At the center of it all, Dee Haslam, Brown's co-owner, community face, and someone who just saw her franchise get emotionally robbed in broad daylight. Sources say she lost it. And if you saw the reaction coming out of Berea, Ohio, well, you'd understand. Because this wasn't just a trade. This was betrayal. Not just to the team, to the city.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
But before we unpack Dee's meltdown and the ripple effect echoing across the AFC North, let's rewind for a second. You remember when Shedeur Sanders first arrived in Cleveland? The hype, the buzz, the maybe this time we got it right feeling? He was the future. A breath of fresh air in a room that suffocated under the weight of failed quarterback experiments since, 1999? And how did the Browns handle that? By sitting him behind aging veterans, giving him scraps for reps, and leaking confusing statements that never made their intentions clear. Then came the losses. Then the injury to Deshaun Watson. And still, they didn't turn to Shedeur. So when rumors broke that Cincinnati had quietly made a deal for Sanders, the NFL didn't just blink. It gasped. Now here's where it gets Shakespearean. Cincinnati. A direct division rival. The one team Cleveland fans cannot stand to lose to. The one fanbase that's been riding high on Joe Burrow magic for the last few years, now seemingly lining up a Burrow-Sanders succession plan so smooth, it's almost offensive. And who's the punchline in that masterclass of strategic patience? Cleveland. Dee Haslam's reported outburst isn't just drama, it's justified rage. Think about it, you draft a generational talent. You market him. You put him on season tickets and hype videos. And then, through a mix of mismanagement, ego, and indecision, you gift-wrap him to your biggest rival? Heads are spinning. Fans are rioting online. And Dee? She's furious because she knows, this one's on them. Cleveland had the piece, the future, the potential to change the narrative. And they fumbled it at the 1-yard line. Meanwhile, over in Cincinnati? Not a peep. Not a tweet. Just silence. That smug, calculated confidence that says, yeah, we knew what we were doing. Because that's the difference. The Bengals plan long-term. They don't panic. They develop. They build succession. While Cleveland, they react. They're always one crisis away from self-sabotage. And now, with Joe Burrow out and the future uncertain, Cincinnati just made the chess move of the year. They've got their safety net, their insurance policy, their future. And it's not just any quarterback. It's Shedeur Sanders. A player with star power, fan appeal, and the kind of mental composure that only comes from being raised by Coach Prime himself. Shedeur isn't just a talent, he's a brand, a system, and a leader all rolled into one. And now he's about to suit up in Bengals stripes. The psychological warfare here is unmatched. Let's not pretend Shedeur wasn't watching all this unfold either. Because his career choices have been strategic since day one. From Jackson State to Colorado, every move has been about building legacy, brand, and momentum. Cleveland? That was never going to be the long-term destination. Too unstable. Too much noise. No clear vision. Cincinnati, though? That's a team with a system, a culture, and a mentorship opportunity with one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. Burrow and Sanders in the same room? That's not a QB room, that's a masterclass. Imagine the film sessions, the growth, the handoff when the time is right. It's dynasty building. Meanwhile, Cleveland fans are left asking, why didn't we just start him? Why draft him if you weren't going to invest? Why let Cincinnati be the ones who reap the rewards? And honestly, there are no good answers. Just broken trust and an empty locker. This rumored trade, mind you, has already caused irreversible damage. Even if it's walked back. Even if it's denied tomorrow. The perception is already locked in. Cleveland looks like the team that couldn't manage their talent. Again. Cincinnati looks like the team that's quietly setting up for the next 10 years. And that brings us back to Dee Haslam. Because when the fans lose faith, when the building leaks confidence, and when your own players start side-eyeing your decisions, you need a reckoning. And that may be where the Browns are heading. Because if this trade goes through, if Shedeur Sanders really suits up for Cincinnati, it's not just a loss. It's a legacy moment. It's the kind of move that divides eras. Pre-Sanders trade and post-Sanders trade. It's the kind of mistake that haunts highlight reels for years. Every Sanders completion in a Bengals jersey? A reminder. Every touchdown pass? A slap in the face. Every playoff appearance? A question mark burned into Cleveland's history. What could have been? Look, not every rookie pans out. We know that. But Shedeur wasn't some raw prospect. He was ready. He had the demeanor, the football IQ, the leadership. And more than anything, he had the fan base behind him. That's rare. That's gold. And Cleveland? They had him. Until they didn't. So here we are. The city's in flames. Bengals fans are pre-ordering jerseys. And the rest of the AFC North? They're watching, taking notes, and probably thanking Cleveland for clearing the path. Because while the Browns are spinning in a cycle of regret, denial, and what-ifs, Cincinnati just did what winning franchises do. They made the hard move before it became the necessary move. And that's what separates the contenders from the cursed. So tell me, was this Cleveland's biggest blunder yet? Or will Sanders prove to be just another overhyped rookie? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're here for the chaos, the rivalries, and the NFL's never-ending drama parade, hit that subscribe button. Because you already know, in this league, perception is power. And right now, Cincinnati holds all the cards. Two cities. Two mindsets. Two legacies heading in opposite directions. And the one thread connecting them is a 21-year-old quarterback with a last name that carries weight like royalty and an aura that demands attention without saying a word. Let's go behind the scenes now, really behind the curtain. Because this isn't just about football plays or depth charts anymore. It's about ego, pride, and power. Dee Haslam's eruption wasn't just an emotional overreaction. It was a mirror cracking on the inside of a franchise that has never been able to get out of its own way. And she knows it. That reaction was the sound of someone who realized, too late, that the house they helped build is still stuck in the same dysfunctional loop. It wasn't just that they lost Shedeur. It's how they lost him. They weren't outbid. They weren't tricked. They chose to overlook him. And now their biggest rival is rolling out a red carpet, and maybe a Super Bowl plan. Let's talk timing. Joe Burrow is hurt. That's real. The Bengals are vulnerable, and in this league, vulnerability is blood in the water. But instead of panicking, the Bengals positioned. They didn't grab a washed-up vet. They didn't make excuses. They future-proofed their empire. Burrow gets healthy? Great. You've got a star in the wings. Burrow's injury lingers? You've got a smooth, confident, NFL-ready rookie with swagger and IQ already absorbing the playbook. Either way, they win. You want to know what this really is? It's the modern NFL, where young players are more than just prospects, they're power players. Guys like Shedeur Sanders don't just sit and wait. They brand themselves. They calculate. They choose where they grow. And let's be honest, Cleveland was never built for a quarterback like Shedeur. Too unstable. Too reactive. Too obsessed with their own tortured history to actually turn the page. In Cincinnati, he gets mentorship. Structure. A blueprint. In Cleveland, he got buried behind aging arms and thrown into a chaotic locker room with no clear leadership hierarchy. A ticking time bomb disguised as competition. Here's the kicker, Shedeur knew it. He played the long game. Quiet, patient, respectful, but all the while watching the cards fall. And when that Bengals opportunity opened up, he didn't hesitate. And neither did they. Let's pause here, because we need to talk about the psychology of this move. This isn't just football, folks. This is warfare with cleats on. The Bengals just pulled off the NFL equivalent of dating your ex's dream partner and moving in next door. It's not just effective, it's diabolical. And the Browns? They walked right into it. They had every chance to make Shedeur feel like the future. They chose not to. Maybe it was politics. Maybe it was pressure from the locker room. Maybe they just couldn't see what was right in front of them. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. They didn't just lose a quarterback. They hand-delivered a weapon to their most hated rival. A rival who now has all the leverage. Think about it. Every time Sanders touches the ball in Cincinnati, every completion, every TD celebration, every viral clip, it's a reminder. A reminder to fans, to media, to players. Cleveland could have had this. But they didn't want it enough. And now, the optics are brutal. You've got fans lighting up Twitter like it's a bonfire. You've got former players shaking their heads on talk shows. You've got analysts saying what everyone's thinking. How did they screw this up? Let's put a finer point on it. This isn't just about talent. It's about timing. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't become a star overnight. He was the moment when Cleveland got him. And instead of cultivating that moment, they stalled it. And now they're watching it bloom somewhere else. Do you understand how devastating that is to a fan base that's been clinging to hope for decades? This isn't just a loss. It's a gut punch soaked in salt water. Let's flip perspectives for a minute. Picture Shedeur walking into the Bengals facility. New jersey, new teammates, new energy, but the same unshakable composure. He's not walking in like a backup. He's walking in like a shadow heir. Burrow's there, but the future just walked in too. The Bengals know what they're doing. This is long-term chess. Legacy building. They saw a crack in the Browns' armor, and they punched straight through it. Because this isn't just a QB battle. This is a takeover. And while the Browns argue in team meetings and fans write furious threads on Reddit, the Bengals are already 10 moves ahead. That is what separates smart franchises from struggling ones. Let's not forget the cultural angle here. Shedeur isn't just a football player. He's a cultural icon in the making. Young, black, media-savvy, socially aware, connected to his legendary father but forging his own lane? That's not just a football win, that's an empire waiting to be built. And in Vegas or New York or LA, that's gold. But in the gritty, blue-collar AFC North? It's nuclear. The merch, the media, the rivalry. It's all about to erupt. And Cleveland's front office? They're the ones holding the detonator. Let's come full circle. Dee Haslam's reaction? It wasn't about a player leaving. It was about a window closing. They had a shot. They hesitated. And the NFL doesn't wait for the slow and sentimental. It rewards the bold. And Cincinnati? They just made the boldest move of the season. It's not just about losing a quarterback anymore. It's about losing face. Let's be real. Cleveland has been through quarterback trauma like no other city in the NFL. From draft busts to one-hit wonders, from Johnny Manziel meltdowns to Baker Mayfield breakup tours, the city has been burned so many times, it flinches every time a new QB walks through the door. And just when it seemed like they had someone real, someone who didn't just want the spotlight but actually knew what to do with it, they let it slip. That's why this moment cuts deeper than most. Because Shedeur Sanders wasn't just talent. He was narrative repair. He was the chance to finally change what people say when they talk about the Cleveland Browns. He had that intangible, leadership, brand, composure, and the arm to back it up. Now, that potential is fueling Cincinnati's future. And for Browns fans, that's the football version of watching your ex become a millionaire with your lottery ticket. Let's not forget what this means for Joe Burrow either. He's the prince of the Bengals, face of the franchise. But he's also human. Injuries pile up, rehab gets longer, recovery gets slower, and before you know it, a new era starts while you're still on the sideline. If Shedeur takes the field and balls out while Burrow heals, that's the type of thing that changes timelines. Not just in the quarterback room, but in history. Think that's dramatic? Go ask Drew Bledsoe how he feels about Tom Brady. Now imagine it happening inside your own division. The Browns, they're scrambling. Because suddenly, everything looks worse in hindsight. Why'd they keep Sanders benched? Why'd they favor veterans clearly past their ceiling? Why draft Dylan Gabriel over the kid who had the entire league watching his every move at Colorado? Why treat Sanders like a project when he was clearly ready for primetime? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The Browns had the golden goose and they tried to shove him in a broom closet. And now that the goose has flown straight into Cincinnati, fans are realizing, maybe it's not about talent. Maybe it's about trust. Because talent without belief? That's how you lose. Let's talk optics. Because perception in the NFL is almost as dangerous as injuries. Right now, Cleveland looks like a team allergic to success. They draft well, get the guy with star power, and instead of doubling down, they overthink it. Meanwhile, Cincinnati looks like the cool, calculated villain in a sports drama. They're not showy. They're not desperate. But they're deadly effective. You think Shedeur didn't notice that difference? Of course he did. Cincinnati may not have the same cultural flash as a New York or an LA, but they've got something better. Stability, structure, leadership. A city that embraces its stars without chewing them up. A locker room that knows who's in charge. And for a young QB looking to build something long-term, that's the real bag. This move isn't just strategic for Cincinnati, it's symbolic. It tells the league, we don't just want to win now, we want to win forever. They're planting the seeds for a dynasty. And Shedeur might be the next great chapter. In Cleveland, they're stuck in the prologue. Again, let's step back. Let's really look at this. In the past 12 months, the Browns have drafted a QB and benched him for politics. Ignored a locker room that's been rallying behind that QB. Lost multiple winnable games due to quarterback instability. Watched Deshaun Watson's injuries and off-field issues linger like smoke they can't clear. got outmaneuvered by a division rival in acquiring a player they already had. That's not just bad optics. That's organizational rot. The kind of stuff that doesn't get fixed with a press conference or a new offensive coordinator. The kind that sticks seasons after the fact. Now here's where it gets poetic. You know what Shedeur posted on Instagram? Just a quote. No caption. You can't plant roses in concrete and expect them to bloom. Subtle? Sure. But if that's not a message to Cleveland, I don't know what is. He's already gone. Maybe not officially. Maybe not on the league wire yet. But spiritually? Emotionally? Strategically? He's already Bengals bound. And he's not looking back. Now you'd think with all this chaos unfolding, the Browns would go into emergency mode. Circle the wagons. Calm the fanbase. But instead, radio silence. And that silence? It's deafening. It tells you everything. The leadership doesn't have a plan. The coaching staff is panicking quietly behind the scenes. And the fan base is doing what it always does in Cleveland. Praying that next Sunday isn't worse than the last. Let's be clear, Shedeur Sanders may not throw a single pass this season. Burrow could come back stronger than ever. Or Sanders could take over mid-season and absolutely set the league on fire. We don't know yet. But that's the thing with quarterback stories. They're never about the moment they're written. They're about the chapters that come next. And right now, the next chapter in the AFC North? It's being written in orange and black. So what now for the Browns? Do they try to course correct and hope fans forget? Do they double down on their veterans and pray the defense bails them out? Or do they finally admit what everyone else sees? That they had lightning in a bottle, and they let it walk out the door. And the worst part? They handed it to the neighbor next door who's been winning quietly and just might be ready to take the throne. So who wins this war? Is Shedeur Sanders the future face of the Bengals? Or will Cleveland find a way to claw back from the brink, again? Think about how rare it is to have a quarterback walk into your building with natural leadership, a family legacy of greatness, and the media presence of a seasoned pro. He had the numbers, the highlight reel, the charisma. He was the total package, and he still hadn't thrown a regular season NFL pass. And Cleveland? They turned their back on all of it. Like it was nothing. Like quarterbacks like him show up every April. Newsflash, they don't. Sanders didn't just bring potential. He brought relevance. That's something the Browns have been chasing for 2 decades. And they had it. Right there. In uniform. In their facility. And they let it rot on the bench behind John Flacco and a half-broken Deshaun Watson. Why? Because pride is louder than reason in some franchises. Because sometimes, organizations are so afraid of being wrong again, they'd rather be wrong and comfortable than right and humbled. Meanwhile, in Cincinnati? Silence. Precision. A franchise that doesn't need to broadcast every move, because it's too busy planning the next one. They're not caught up in headlines. They're crafting legacies. The Bengals aren't perfect. But they're smart. And right now, smart is everything. They looked at Shedeur Sanders and didn't just see a backup or a Burrow insurance policy. They saw a force multiplier. A brand builder. A long-game investment. Let's say Burrow never has another injury again. Great. You have a QB room stronger than most starting lineups. But if the worst happens? If rehab slows or another hit ends a season? Shedeur's not just ready. He's built for the moment. Cleveland couldn't see that. Cincinnati did. And you know who else sees it? The rest of the league. Let's not pretend the NFL isn't watching this unfold with popcorn. Every exec, every agent, every GM with a QB on shaky footing, they're all tuned in. Because what Shedeur Sanders just pulled off isn't normal. He didn't demand a trade. He didn't throw a tantrum on social media. He didn't leak stories or air grievances through insiders. He simply waited, worked, stayed patient, let the dysfunction expose itself. And when the right opportunity knocked, he walked through the door. That's not drama. That's discipline. And now, the conversation around Sanders isn't if he'll be great. It's where that greatness will unfold and how quickly Cleveland will regret every minute they wasted. And oh, they'll regret it. Not just because of what Sanders becomes, but because of what they continue to be. A team forever stuck in neutral. Always rebuilding. Always almost. Never quite. Let's talk about legacy for a minute. Every franchise has its face. The Browns have had flashes, players who gave the city hope. Baker Mayfield, Josh Gordon, Myles Garrett. But they've never had a true era-defining star at quarterback. Shedeur could have been that. The face on murals. The kid wearing the 10 jersey in every school hallway. The leader who didn't just give the team swagger, but made the city believe. Now, That moment belongs to Cincinnati. And Cleveland's stuck chasing ghosts again. You can't script this better. It's Shakespearean. A prodigy walks into a cursed kingdom. The people cheer. The rulers doubt. He's banished, ignored, outmaneuvered, and then rises again, not just in triumph, but in enemy colors. You think Browns fans will ever forget that? They're not mad at Shedeur. They're mad at themselves for daring to believe this time would be different. And that's the real heartbreak. It's not that Sanders left. It's that he never even got the chance to stay. Let's zoom out though, because this isn't just about two cities. This is about a bigger shift in the NFL. We are witnessing a new generation of quarterbacks take control of their careers like never before. Think about it. Caleb Williams choosing his landing spot based on ownership and infrastructure. Arch Manning already making headlines for prioritizing long-term fit over early playing time. And now, Shedeur Sanders, stepping into a chess match and moving like a grandmaster. These guys aren't waiting for franchises to figure it out. They're demanding better. And why shouldn't they? The league makes billions. Fans invest emotionally and financially. Players lay their bodies on the line. The days of sitting quietly while your talent is wasted? Gone. Shedeur is proof. He didn't hold the Browns hostage. He didn't trash the franchise publicly. He just made it clear, if you won't build around me, someone else will. And someone else did. Now let's talk Bengals, because this is where it gets scary for everyone else. This team already had a Super Bowl window. They've already built a core. Now they've added a quarterback who doesn't just want to win but wants to build. Shedeur isn't just looking to win rings, he's looking to define an era. And in Cincinnati he might do exactly that. He's got weapons. He's got structure. He's got time. He doesn't need to force anything. He just needs to grow. And when he does, you're looking at a problem for the AFC, for the NFL, and for Cleveland. You're looking at a nightmare that never ends. Because for the next 10 to 15 years they're going to have to watch highlights. They're going to have to listen to comparisons. They're going to have to live with what they lost every single Sunday. And Shedeur? He's not going to gloat. He's going to smile. He's going to lead. And he's going to win. So let's land this thing. Cleveland fumbled the bag. Cincinnati picked it up, zipped it shut, and hopped on a private jet toward Dynasty territory. And Shedeur Sanders? He just proved that in today's NFL, talent isn't enough. You need vision. You need control. You need to know exactly who you are before the league tries to define it for you. And he does. He always has. If you're still breathing after all that, let me ask you, does Shedeur become the face of the Bengals for the next decade? Is this Cleveland's worst front office failure yet? And can any team stop Cincinnati now that they're playing 4D chess? Sound off in the comments. And if you live for this kind of story, player empowerment, franchise meltdowns, drama that makes you scream at the screen, you already know what to do. Subscribe. Because this isn't just football anymore. This is legacy in motion.